So the whole vibe we're going to do, it's a bit of a laugh, obviously, with whatever the hell's in this bag, we're going to find out. And then what we're going to do is have a little chat around like sales, Christmas stuff. So like, for example, how do you deal with the quietness of December? Chris, I'll be like, what's the funniest story you've got around sales at Christmas time? Mark, maybe we've got some horror stories in recruitment when you're in there as well. We'll just ask a bunch of random questions and fly through as we go. All right? It's completely unscripted. It's a complete mess. It's meant to be fun.
This is going to be...
Have a funny Christmas sale.
That's part of the fun. Right, should we get our bags?
Cool.
I have my bag ready.
I'll put my fidget toy down. So I need a knife.
Just rip it.
Yeah, just rip it, Mark.
Arm strength, Mark. You can go to the gym. You just disappeared off camera. You actually want to get scissors.
I love how we're recording. You've just disappeared. Yeah, fair.
It's alright, the Christmas food expected me anyway.
Bit of Terry's.
Like I said, this is gonna be. I'm not even doing an intro.
Oh, this is actually a lot more tame than I anticipated.
Novelty glasses.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I've got reindeer antlers.
You got off lightly. I've got, what in the monstrosity is this?
Go on then, Chris. Chuck it on.
Why?
Come on, Charlie.
I am not convinced about this bad boy.
I don't know.
Hilarious.
Keep away from fire. I think this needs burning.
Keep away from fire.
Look, I've got like thread across the front of mine. There's no lens.
I'll fit my own headset somehow.
Your internet is like powered by a hamster. It's really blurry.
I've managed.
Whose
It's all right.
internet?
Yeah, it uploads itself. Oh, I got given Chucky. Yours. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
That's
That's
intense.
the beauty of this platform. I got Terry's chocolate orange. Thanks, Callum.
Jesus.
Chocolate on the company. We love that.
I really hate
love it,
how
Terry's.
the company genuinely sees me as a person.
I think it's pretty spot on. I think I'm about to be the same as you, Mark, because I too have these snowy
I
glasses.
got a chocolate.
Chris, you look absolutely fantastic. Honestly, I've got exactly the same coming as well in a minute when I can figure out how to.
Oh no!
What else have you got, Chris?
How do you see?
What else have you got? You got to have more than that.
I've got a hat that I'm not
All right.
convinced about. It's quite a big hat.
Unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I 100% took all this like all the way down over my head.
So what I understand is you were basically meant to be an elf, Mark. I'm not sure what Chris is meant to be until he gets his hat on.
I don't know if I can. How do you even? It's got wings. Why does it have wings?
Those
Okay,
are
that
ears,
sounds
mate.
interesting.
Be
You're like a
respectful,
reindeer.
my kind.
Oh, sorry, there is. Obviously, there is. I'm not convinced I can get this on.
This is because I had that argument over marketing attrition, isn't it? An attribution.
The marketing team knew that you were in the line. That's it.
It's upsetting for everyone involved.
Those ears are fantastic. Well, there's some good outtakes at the very least.
That is gonna
Wait,
be short.
wait. I missed this last bit. Oh,
You've
God.
got a last bit.
Right. How in the hell do you get this?
You got a beard.
Yeah, I got a beard. But I'm not really sure how you're meant to put this on.
So, is this
It's
when
like
we
a-
talk? Do we talk world politics once you've got the beard on, or is it after it? I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, I think so. It's got a net. Okay, so the net has got to come off. That makes more sense. And then how does that?
Is it a beard or a wig?
Right. It's a beard. I'm just not quite sure how it's meant to fit over my face, to be honest with you. Right, hang on. The headset's got to come off for that. Okay, this is all going wrong already. We're going to figure this out. I'll tell you what, let's take these off for a sec.
Is this genuinely came out of their budget? Because I can tell.
Okay. As soon as this goes over like that, the glass is going to get in the way. This is all going wrong.
This is why we stayed in the budget hotel.
This is
Budget went on
100%
this.
the
This is why
reason
marketing should include instructions.
When does this even go out, by the way?
Is this even going to work? Okay.
There we go.
Now I think we're there.
Now we're on.
Forgot. This is ridiculous. Okay, we're back in. We're good.
And they literally say salespeople have no self-respect.
Yeah, neither does the CEO, apparently. This is ridiculous. All right, boys and girls, we're ready for a podcast. And not the usual kind. I've got Chris, who's our VP Sales. I've got Mark as I can't talk with this. This is ridiculous. I got Mark who's our SDR Manager. And we're going to have a little bit of fun for Christmas. Apparently a bit too much fun at marketing's expense. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Mark, I've got an opening question for you. If you could have anything from Sales Santa, not me, I'm talking about Chris here, for Christmas, what would it be?
What? As in a present directly from Chris or from Santa?
Santa.
Feels like
Right.
Sales Santa.
I don't know how inappropriate this is meant to be, by the way. Or is that like a genuine, hey, Mark?
Start.
That's a really good question. What do I want from Sales
I
Santa?
can't get over this.
How am I supposed to have a real conversation like this?
Your conversation's taken far too long here, I think, Mark. It's not going to work out the way that you intended.
No, I thought this would be fun.
Okay, let's go another way then. Because I have another question to ask you in general. You used to work in recruitment before you were with us. This looks ridiculous. I can't get over it, honestly. Tell us about a fun story around Christmas and recruitment.
So my first Christmas in recruitment, we did Secret Santa. And this was just for the COVID lockdowns. And we were given a limit in budget. But I was off on the day that they were opening the presents. And I thought, I'll pick up some last few bits and pieces and go for a few drinks. I got in at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So
Brilliant.
what I was doing is, while I was struggling to stay awake, I was just wrapping presents over and over again, and then had to drop them off to the office. So I thought, right, I'll get there super early so no one can see that clearly I am still drunk and I've slept maybe 45 minutes. And I've panicked and I've gone, oh no, you can kind of see what the present is. So I've wrapped it again and again. What I didn't remember was I'd already wrapped it twice, being funny. So the next day I've woken up at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I've been sent a video of Kieran sat there, just everyone in the office watching, waiting for him to unpeel these layers of what can only be described as the poorest wrapping you have ever seen in your entire life, for him to unwrap the hoodie that he helped me buy for someone else while the entire office
Brilliant.
is stood there waiting for him to peel back these layers of what can only be essentially described as a Christmas onion. Which, in retrospect...
You don't strike me as someone that's very... you don't strike me as someone particularly adept at wrapping presents, to be honest.
Do you know what? That's a fair assumption. That is a really fair assumption.
Are you the parent wrapper in your household, Chris?
Yeah, well, mostly I would say. Yeah, it's kind of split between me and my partner, in fairness. I feel like, no, Hannah's probably the better wrapper.
How would you rate yourself out of 10 on wrapping skills? Because I really think it depends on if you're trying to wrap something that's a square, that's like a rectangle, that's fine. But as soon as it becomes cylindrical or has some weird proportion to it, suddenly it's a very different conversation.
Yeah, it probably just turns into layers and layers of wrapping, in fairness. No, I'm probably not a great rapper. I probably rush it a little bit too much. I don't think my partner is either. So my partner is a bit funny because she just insists on Christmas not being a surprise. So she's always desperate to know every present before Christmas. Honestly, it feels like an interrogation at the moment because I've hidden the presents upstairs in the loft where obviously I work, and she's literally, I think I've caught her standing at the door, outside the door, just like willing herself to not go upstairs and find out what I've got over Christmas.
Incredible.
Sad, really, yeah.
Incredible. Well, intros about wrapping and that aside, like what we thought would be quite fun to do is talk a little bit about the year in retrospect as well. We're at the last week of the year, everything's nearly done and wrapped up. It's been a difficult year, should we say. Santa wasn't kind to us this year, is the best summary I can really think of. What's kind of your reflections looking back on the last 12 months, Chris? And obviously you joined us, 9-10 months ago now? That has gone very quick, by the way. But what has your reflection been on this year overall?
Yeah, gosh, 9-10 months. Can't believe that. Nothing more than I would have expected, if I'm being honest. So a lot of this year has just been about building foundations, and I think really just kind of establishing kind of the key stuff around getting the right culture that's in place, getting the right processes, getting the right structure of the team, and all this sort of stuff that is really basics at the end of the line. But I think that for us, really critical to set us up for future years. I would say the market, has had an impact, but we've still grown year on year. And I think that's come from the hard work and the dedication of the team, really, and rolling this stuff out. And, Mark, bless him, has had to go through quite a lot of change, I would say, over the course of the last kind of 9-ish months, in terms of process, the way he's working, the way he manages, the way he thinks about sales itself. And I think that's really critical. But for me, culture is the big one. It's kind of resetting expectations and raising those standards, but then still, whilst you're kind of putting a bit more kind of, I guess, grind to the gears, establishing that right culture that means that people enjoy their work, that people expect more from themselves, that are in a position where they're constantly learning and developing. And I think that's always the most interesting side. And not to kind of go too much in a tangent, but culture, I think, is probably the most pivotal of all of those things. And I talk about culture quite a lot, whether I'm interviewing or I'm speaking to other leaders or I'm speaking to our people here. And I think the reason why I'm so obsessed with getting culture right is because it's quite an ethereal concept at best. Like, it's something where every culture talks about, every company even talks about culture. They talk about how, it's really important that we have the right mix and all this sort of stuff. But really, it's a PR and a recruitment, kind of push at best. Like, it feels like it's just some values you've written on a wall, then you stick a pool table downstairs and hey ho, we've got culture. And actually,
hey ho, says.
Yeah, hey ho, I say. And principally, I actually disagree with that. Like, I think that culture is much more than just a set of values. Like, it's the way that we feel. Like, it's the reason that for a lot of us, we stick with a company. There's always other companies you can earn more at, but it's the culture is the reason that we stay. It's the people around us. And I think sales in particular, that's one of the biggest aspects towards it, because sales in itself, if you think about any other job that's in the world, whether you're working in legal or finance or whatever that is, the way that we feel, like the way that we feel about our company, the things that we sell, the people around us, yes, it impacts us, but realistically, how much does that impact the work that we do? Whether it's numbers we're entering into a spreadsheet or whatever that is. But in sales, a lot of what we do is around this idea of reaching out into the world and emotionally and logically influencing people, to make a decision about something, to potentially buy something that they've never really thought of buying before. And the way that we feel about our company, about the people around us, the way that we work, what we sell, the value we bring to the world matters, because it impacts the way that we communicate.
I think some way through that, Mark, you said you disagreed with the point that Chris made.
Yeah.
Always dangerous to disagree with you, boss.
I would be much more motivated to work if you sent me a pool table. If you went, we're getting you a pool table for downstairs when you finish work. Yeah, all right. What do you need me to do? But I do see your point about culture. Like, it is a lot of it's spray painted on the walls, but I am a firm believer in a solid pool table in the back garden does make for a happy workplace. Like, I could promise you.
That's an interesting point.
Why?
Well, that's an interesting point, Mark, because what you're saying is that a pool table is the reason that you would work in this instance. So let's say that was a quarterly incentive. We then hit that quarter's target or whatever that stretch goal was to get you a pool table. You then get that pool table in place. And I would argue that within a month or two, then that would then tend to evaporate into the background. It's a part of your life. How does that consistently keep you working? Am I just buying you more pool tables?
No, different sorts of pool tables. So, like, you'd be like, oh, Mark, if we hit target, we're going to get you a pool table. Wicked. This month, ping pong. Like, we're going to get you a car which you can fit flat pack IKEA furniture into.
Are you okay, Mark?
I'm really not. It's pretty hot in this hat. But no, but I genuinely believe I genuinely believe the team would be motivated if the quarterly incentive was to buy me a pool table.
Okay. It strikes up an interesting conversation around like reward there, extrinsic versus intrinsic as well, right? And for years, like the researchers said, at the end of the day, shock horror, you need a little bit of both. But before we dig too far into that, I want to come back to one of your points, Chris, around like culture. You say how important it is, or it's all you talk about. Probably a number one question a lot of people will have is then how do you create the right culture? What are the actual tactical things that you can do to build a culture that creates a very positive environment to work in, one where the people are loyal to, things like that. So open up the mind of Chris Aitken for a while, Father Christmas, and give us a little bit of insight then. How do you create that kind of culture?
God, that is a very serious question for this.
And a
this
very
hat.
big question.
Yeah. So
There's still going to be some value coming out of this podcast, I promise.
You're talking about culture online,
Photoshop.
where I can put a pool table. This is great.
Okay, I think there's we could talk about this for ages, but I think there's a few kind of key principles in my mind. One is I've always believed that culture is trickle down. Culture is something that always starts at the top. It starts with you, Derry, in terms of how you act, the way that you think, the way that you communicate, through to me, through to Mark, and thus everyone else will feel and act in a certain way based off the influence of the people that are working with them or above them. And I think that's really, really key, because I've been in way too many companies where culture is talked about quite heavily and they believe in values and whatever else, but actually like how much they enact on those values, like how much they truly live those values is pretty limited, if I'm being honest. And really it's almost like these values exist as a reason to hold people to them, but they operate on a different level or a different station. And that I principally disagree with. Actually, where culture is built from is from the actions that people have, particularly those within some form of seniority or power in an organization. And I think that's really key. The other aspect of how you influence culture is people. That's probably one of the biggest areas, is the types of people that you bring into an organization, the types of people you retain, the decisions that you make along that pathway and that journey. Cultures are influenced in a negative way by keeping people around who maybe don't really match that culture. Not saying they're not the right fit for any organization, but for your organization or our organization specifically, the way that they act may not align, but sometimes managers will overlook that for the reason of revenue or whatever that looks like. But thus, if you overlook that for other people in the team, they will think, well, okay, the way that person acts, whether it's stealing deals or kind of doing something a bit backdoory in some way, well, that's okay then, if that person's acting in that way. And the ways that you positively influence that culture is by bringing in the people that match those values, intrinsically. More than that, I think the way that you add diversity and you build on culture is by adding people that have a different viewpoint, that have a different stance about whether it's about the world, whether it's about sales, the way that you deal with people, the way that you communicate. And it's no different with Mark's team. Mark's team has seen a real evolution, I think, over the last 9 months, bringing in different members of the team with very different viewpoints and different ways of working, whether it's being quite data heavy and being quite statistic led, all the way through to those that are really kind of just shoot from the hip. They'll just pick up the phone and dial, for example. And actually, there isn't a right or a wrong. There's a balance in that, sure. But bringing in those different types of characters and personalities have influenced that culture and built progression and learning for everyone in that kind of peer-to-peer community.
I've got to talk about your team, Mark, to be fair, because I remember commenting you two the day while we were out for our Christmas meetup. It feels like half a sales team and half an American sports team at the best of times. What's your approach to how you build SDR culture?
That's okay. I'm trying to build a culture of high performance. We're not a family. I treat it like a high performance sports team. You can be, brothers in arms and everything like that. But if you're not good enough to play, you should be on the pitch. And one of the main things that is really crucial in our culture is if you focus on doing your job right, the person next to you will. And then knowing that when things aren't going right, you've got that person next to you can reach out to. And yeah, you're right. It does feel like a sports team. I've been a part of a lot over my time. I've been a part of good ones. I've been a part of bad ones. I've been a part of those that I probably should have taken my role more seriously, and then I've been in those where I've tried to take it way too more seriously than it is. And the best sort of way to build that culture is by knowing that, and it's something that I actually picked up from the newly appointed sales director at Odro, so thank you, is that your team do literally need to run through walls for you. But they won't do that if you're not running through walls for them. And it's something that really rung true because whether it's sports, sales, or even just trying to overcome something, if you haven't got a culture where you can go, hey, I'm actually stuck with this. How do I get better? Or, hey, can you help me? What's the best route through this that I've came up with together? And you can't build that culture, then you're fucked. Wait, can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that, Mark. It's fine.
All right, cool. Yeah, you're fucked. Like, you're absolutely fucked because there's so many times, especially in a remote atmosphere, building that crucial culture. Because as much as I say pool tables are great for my culture in my household, I've been texting my partner. I've been told I can't have that anyway. So I am now back on board with Chris's idea with a culture, right? But if you cannot build culture, especially in a remote environment, even a hybrid environment, then no one's really doing it for anything else but themselves. And you know what? That's okay. Like, I'm not saying every company you go into work for, you've got to follow their vision. Like, you don't, your first job when you was working at Asda or Derry, you worked at McDonald's, and Chris, you don't let me get to know you well enough to know your childhood, but I'm sure you had some decent first jobs, right? you didn't go in there and go, right, Ronald McDonald, that's my boy. Like, no, my boy. Like, no, that's not how you did it. You did it because it was money, and that's okay. But that culture, that friendship, that bonding between you at those teammate levels is crucial because that's why you stay in places. And you're right, Chris. More money, more problems, biggie smalls. I thought that's what we were talking about rapping when you mentioned rapping earlier. I was like, been looking forward to this. I thought that's what Alex messaged me about a Christmas rap. But more importantly, with the whole culture in the team, and bring it back to a nice, unconcise point, obviously. But if you can't build the culture, then you just got people that are doing the motions. The culture's when you get passion from, and the fun competitiveness or the aiming towards the same goal mentality. If you can't build that, then you're fucked. And if you are fucked, just build it like a sports team. It seems to work out all right. Like,
I love how you say the word fucked once, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you can say that if you want. And then you proceed to say it 3 times in the next sentence. And I probably said it in every
I've
sentence.
been fidgeting with this every time I've gone to say it. I've been like, not quite, but I've just all fucks loose. Like, could be worse. There are so many more colourful choices of language I could have chosen. Yeah, chosen.
A whole salvo available, and you chose to stick with the one. Fair play. All right, we spoke about culture a lot. Let's look forward to a little bit around next year now. I'm very aware that we're all sat here, should be got glasses and hats, and that's kind of part of the fun of it. Not very Christmassy looking forward already because everyone's looking forward to Christmas. But when you think about next year, I'll start with you, Chris. What are you excited about? I'm not especially mean our business, but maybe for the sales profession, or any technical trends that you really like, any things that you've heard about that you quite like. Oh, that sounds exciting.
Okay, probably 2 parts of this. One is about the company, and one maybe is a bit more generally about the sales industry. So about the company, so we're at the stage now where we've set some good foundations in place. There's more to do. There's always more to do, in fairness. But we're at that point of where it's about scalable process, where actually once you've built this stuff, like, this is where it starts to get interesting, because this is where you can tweak the engine. Once you've built that kind of factory line, if you will, and you've got deals flowing through this pipeline in a consistent, measurable way, it's at that point you can really start to analyze, like, what does the ideal opportunity look like? When do we most typically win? And then how do we then benchmark all of our other opportunities around this ideal? And then we can start to tweak across that kind of factory line engine, whether it's at the start in terms of that sales process at the very beginning. What are you doing, Mark?
He's enacting out what you're saying.
I genuinely thought, for those who aren't listening and reading captions, this would be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
To that. So go back. So whether it's about the prospecting side and looking at, like, what does that demo pipeline look like? How do we build that pipeline? What's working? What sequences? What messaging is resonating and landing? What is the structure of those sequences, whatever that is, all the way through to the demo stage and beyond, of looking at discovery and what questions are working, what's not, looking at the demo and that demo structure, and then going deeper into that. Like, how many stages do you need within a pipeline to get the win? You know, how often do we need pilots? How often do we need trials? How often do we need things like break clauses? What does that ideal look like? And then all of a sudden you create this scalable process and you map everything against that ideal and you fine tune this engine as you go. And that's a really interesting bit to get to. And we've spent obviously the first 9-10 months so far in my tenure kind of building that out so we can get to this point. And this is where we can really start to fly. Looking at generally across the sales industry, that's a funny one, isn't it? I think that's probably a bit of a tough question because sales as an industry has gone through cycles. You know, and I think that there were a lot of people who probably thought they had sales really figured out, particularly at the start of the tech bubble. And as that kind of grew, and all of a sudden you had all these kind of sales experts jumping out as being gurus. You had all the big companies in tech talking about the right and wrong way of doing sales. And then ironically, not to throw anyone under the bus here and name names, we've suddenly seen that tech bubble burst and all of a sudden people have shifted in their opinion. It's no longer that age old, I hate this line, but cold calling is dead. And you see that all over LinkedIn. And all of a sudden it's now, how do we boost outbound? And it's coming from the same people that were talking about cold calling being dead, ironic. And actually sales is going through another cycle now of almost resetting of how it was pre kind of tech boom and loads of inbound coming in. It's now going back into that outbound world. So do I think anything new and revolutionary is going to come in sales next year? Probably not. I think we're going to go back to the foundations in some ways and go back to the things that truly made, I think, sales impactful. You know, the ability to reach out to someone and connect with someone on another level, you know, emotionally and logically, like I talked about earlier, to convince them to jump on a call with us, you know, is imperative. Because no longer do people have, you know, limitless budgets of where they're booking in demos left, right. And all of a sudden it was about optimization of that inbound funnel and thinking like, how do we optimize this to get the most amount of wins and qualify people in and out, which was the big focus for, I think, 2-3 years. Now it's, we need more in the pipeline and going back to the hard yards of sales, rolling our sleeves up and just trying to find business, you know. And I think that's what's going to be interesting because there will be some companies that can adapt to that and will survive. There will be some other ones that I think will be slow to adapt or just won't adapt to it and won't.
Interesting points. We're going backwards rather than forwards in many ways, back to the basics. What about you, Mark? Because you're a bit of a golden retriever. You love getting excited by seemingly anything that shows a little bit of shininess to it. So what are you excited about for next year?
Well, my answer was a hell of a lot shorter than that. So thanks, Chris. I thought this was going to be loads of fun,
right.
really in depth. But what am I excited for?
Chris is like, but that is fun.
Yeah. Right, okay. What am I excited for? What's new and upcoming in tech? I like the idea of consolidation. I like how more people are now trying to pile more things into a package instead of having multiple tools. You have it for one. I'm excited to see the death of mass spam. I'm really excited for that. And just the standards being raised of what actually is worth your time. Like, I take pride in my prospecting. I've tried funny stuff. I've tried content. I've tried cold calling, emailing, LinkedIn voice notes, videos. I've even gone as far as sent someone a get well soon Moonpig card. Didn't go the way I wanted in retrospect. Probably should have felt the situation out. But hey ho, I tried it, right? But I'm excited for it because the bar keeps getting raised. And it's no longer in COVID where you sent a video and everyone's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, we're moving forward as an industry. We've got to use these new techniques, this new tech, how we do things and how we really explain to it. And I'm excited for the bar to be raised again because there's nothing more satisfying than being told as a salesperson that, holy shit, this outreach was good. Like, that is what really fuels me because I have really high expectations in my team. The team, not my team. But
the whole come back to an earlier point you made, because you mentioned about the whole like anti-spam thing. I remember there was a whole like thing about that where it was everyone was like, oh, every email sender to Gmail is going to get caught. Then apparently Google went and updated their thingy where it was only
Google pussied out
Gmail emails.
Yeah, they pussied
I
out.
think so.
They fully pussied out. It has to be a business address now. So you can send mass spam out of personal email inboxes and face zero consequences. And it's like,
No. I'm pretty sure it's the to destination. It's not where it's going from. So like Outlook, for example, could be emailing a bunch of Gmail accounts. If it's getting spammed into receiving accounts that are all personal ones, then you can get marked as spam. But I'm pretty sure they can still send as many as they want to business addresses, and it's generally going to be fine, is what I understand it as.
That's what I thought as well. Yeah.
great.
1-0, Mark. 1-0.
Fantastic. So that's like, all right, Google. That's
not your brightest moment.
Look, I thought Google.
But just on that point, Mark, I think it's. Sorry, mate. I think it's a really important point that you're making, because actually, yes, we're in a position where maybe Google has kind of backtracked a little bit on what they were talking about before, and I do think it's a backtrack because I don't think that was the original strategy. Right. But it doesn't negate from your point, like your point around actually just being more personalized in your outreach. That's talked about a lot. Again, loads of sales, leaders, people are always talking about personalization. But let's really pin it back to the actual bare bones here of what that really means. It's being human. And I think that's such an aspect that gets missed in sales. And the ability to reach out to someone, for someone who's the recipient, to feel like it's another human being that has paid attention to them, that has taken an interest, is trying to make something relevant for who they are and what they're doing, is so key. And that's probably one of the biggest areas of sales that, has been shifting, I think, over the last couple of years, and is going to really become much more dominant over the course of the next 2 or 3 again. And that comes back to this idea that we are so flooded, like every single day, with communication across LinkedIn, across email, across calls. There's so many salespeople, so many companies, so many people trying to sell their services and products. And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. We're all here to do business. But the ability to connect with someone is about being human. And sometimes we forget, in our world of process and our world of methodology, or whatever that is, like actually we're one human being talking to another. So even if it's over an email, to connect with someone, like, you've got to sound human, like, you've got to sound real, and you've got to sound relevant to that person. And that, I think, is what you're talking about, Mark, because I think that's key. That is one of the biggest shifts that we've seen, and it's going to be really important going into next year.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
In those exact words, in that exact pacing. That's
literally
exactly
everything I had written down there, you've just summed up in a nice, eloquent bow. Could have done with a few more fucks, but you got there.
Yeah, one thing I've quite enjoyed, and obviously we're trying this a little bit at OneUp at the minute, is like being able to kind of see a product before you even like take a demo or speak to anybody. Like on our website, we're using Storylane. I've seen those guys on LinkedIn doing quite well. They seem to be growing quite fast, which is lovely for them as well. But like the whole idea of like not having to almost skirt around showing someone a product. Like I remember the years of like wanting to buy stuff, and people would just be like, "Oh, do you want to get on a call first?" And before they'd even show you the product, you had to speak about like a 30-minute discovery. Then you'd ask about pricing, and they'd be like, well, let me show you the value first, and we'll give it a run through the product, and then I'll tell you about pricing. Everything was just so hidden away, whereas it feels for a lot of companies now, we're going towards a very buyer-first mentality, where it's like, hey, you want to see the product? Yeah, by all means, see the product. You want to see the pricing? That's totally fine. See the pricing. And everything feels like it's getting a lot more open. And the line that I've loved that really sums up the way that I think sales is going is you're now really there to help people buy, not to sell to them. There is a very big difference in that mentality as well. Do you think that's an interesting movement yourself as well, Chris, or something you just like, no, I'd rather we always be selling to people, not helping them buy? How dare we?
No, I think that's pivotal. I think it's a really important point. And I think, again, maybe our industry, as in sales, has been a bit slow on the uptake of that. And it's only really shifting now. It comes naturally when things are more competitive, ultimately. There's so many more services and products. No one's unique. Let's face it. Like, no one's got a unique proposition. There's things that are unique about your product, sure, but there's no real unique product or service anymore. And if there is, it's not for long, because someone else will launch something the next day. And as a result, it comes down to this place of rather than feeling like we are the experts about everything, which just isn't true anymore. Like, there used to be a world, say, pre-internet with sales, when internet wasn't as much of a big thing in terms of the freedom of information that we have now today. It used to be that salespeople were truly consultants, in the sense that when a buyer spoke to a salesperson in some way, they didn't have that wealth of information they could call on. They couldn't do a level of research into that type of product or solution. And thus they were quite reliant on the salesperson to help them make that decision about whether it's the right or wrong thing. And now, because of the amount of information that's available, what do people do? They research. Like, and even if you are a salesperson and you think, oh no, they're not going to research, they'll just jump on the demo. I promise you that you are wrong. Like, they will go on the internet. They won't tell you, but they'll Google you, and they'll Google other types of companies out there, and they will try and get some sort of benchmark to understand, what am I making the right call here? Is this a product that's interesting to me? Like, how can I price comparison? What are the feature comparisons? What should I be thinking about when I'm buying this type of product? And as a result, like, our role in sales has shifted quite heavily, actually. And now it's our job to help steer them through that buying process, because it's complicated. Like, it's really complicated to buy something like software, as an example. It's so hard. You jump on a call with, I don't know, let's say a fintech kind of payments solution. There are a dime a dozen of those out there, and you'll jump on this call and they will all be saying the same thing to you, that they can fix your problems, and they'll be talking in the same track as you. And you're thinking, cool, so all these people are saying the same thing. What do I do? Well, I've got a solution in-house already. Like, this sounds quite risky. So maybe I just don't do anything. Like, yeah, like, it's got issues, but I mean, that's not that risky, is it? But if I buy this and they're all saying the same thing and it's wrong, my head's on the chopping block. I'm going to look pretty stupid in front of my boss, and I want to get promoted this year. Like, whatever that is. And actually, it comes back to this idea of we as salespeople have to be honest with buyers as truly as we can, and to help them in that buying process to make the decision that's right for them, and to feel comfortable, to take the risk out of that decision making, and to give them as much information, like you're saying, whether it's around the price, they want to see a demo, show them a demo. Like, sure, it doesn't fit in your perfect pitch structure, but it's not about you. Like, it's about the buyer, ultimately.
Totally agree. Any thoughts, Mark?
Why our sales process is the exact same for every business when every business is different? Just because how you have a process doesn't mean that you have to follow that process for every business. And we're pretty fucking arrogant trying to think that no one's going to Google us or Google you when you speak to someone. Like, time is an expensive commodity. That's the right word I wanted to use, I think. Yeah, why not? And more importantly, with that as well, is the fact of Chris is right. Like, I kind of challenge that it's now to help people buy. It's never really been about buying or selling. It's helping someone find the right piece of tech. Our job as salespeople is to go, hey, we solve these problems. Do you face them? No? All right, I will check back in when you might. But then to leave enough impact so when that problem arises, they get back to us. But now, especially when you're working like a partner network as well, it's cool. If you're not facing our problems, what problems are you facing? And realistically, we shouldn't be there to sell tech. We should be able to help people buy. It's nice. It's nice to help people buy, right? It helps increase conversion rates. You're a good person. You pat yourself. You don't get cold for Christmas, right? But you're there to help someone find a piece of tech. And especially on inbounds, they came inbound for a reason. And it's not because they've got a KPI to hit demos, but there are people out there with KPIs to hit demos. Holler your boy. But realistically, out of all of it, I think this is on a delay because it didn't take that long for you guys to process this joke. And I'm fucking hilarious.
Mm-hmm. No, there is a delay, mate. You're delayed by about
all right, cool. Because I was there like...
We'll fix it. We'll fix it in post.
Oh, all right, cool. Because I was there like... I know I'm a bit complex, but it doesn't take that long to break down my jokes. I'm sure a bit. Where was I? Yeah, so you're there to help someone find the right piece of tech. If someone comes inbound to you, they go, hey, here's a problem that I have. I've done some research. You seem to fit the bill. The idea is that you don't want to force a square into a circle. I'll go, yeah, you don't need that. You just need this. And then you end up with churn, bad word of mouth, and everything else in between. You're just there to help someone find the right piece of tech. Who the hell was like unwrapping their entire Christmas tree by the camera?
That was Chris. I think he knew you were talking for so long, so he wanted to start eating his Terry chocolate orange.
That's exactly it, yeah.
See? To be fair, about half as mine has gone. I have managed to slowly chew through about half of it, which has been great.
Anyone else having an allergic reaction to these glasses?
No. And I can't say allergic reaction, mate. You might want to get that checked out.
Yeah, Santa's favourite elf. Anti-elf routines.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been about half an hour. We could keep on talking about this forever, but this is the beard is now starting to itch at my neck as well. So I think we're all in the same spot of things are starting to itch. Let's wrap it up on something nice. What is going into next year, what's like your a motto or mantra that you're like carrying through your life that you always use? Like mine is always, if you can be nothing else, be kind. I want to know what your guys are. Have you got little mottos that you follow that you'll carry through into next year as well? Starting with you, Mark. Actually, we'll go with you first on this one.
I was hoping you wouldn't. There's a couple I'm aiming to follow next year. Some I have PTSD from, some I don't. Some that are wildly inappropriate, some that aren't. So we'll start with what's appropriate to put on professional LinkedIn. Just be better. Just be better.
Brilliant.
Be better.
Be better. It's something that if I look back at all the phrases that I've been told in sports, in everything, it's just be better. And one of my key things that I'm going to really try and drive to come along is you should be able to shut your laptop at the end of each day and switch off. If you can't, you know you've not gave your all that day. People that want to work late into the nights and stuff like that as well, because they've got massive amounts of work, that might not apply to you. But as a salesperson in a role like an SDR, even AE, if you know you've given your 100%, you've never missed a follow-up, you've always hit your activity, even when your meetings are booked, you're still up there with the best at the top of the leaderboards, and you've done a good job. But tomorrow, be better. And that's it for me. That's it for me. The other one was, I'm pretty sure this will get edited out in retrospect. When life's getting you down, actually, no, it's really inappropriate. Let's just cut this part.
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't even say it then. Just when life's getting you down, we can just leave it at that point. That's completely fine by me.
Something about
and be better is a nice simple one. Turns out be better had more depth to it, which is nice. I'll give you that one, even though the actual line itself is pretty simple. What about you, Chris?
I thought that was going to be an excerpt from one of our one-to-ones, Mark.
I've got an audio clip of you saying this on air.
Yeah, this is quite literally the PTSD I'm talking about.
What's more? So I guess it's probably the same as every year, really. Just always be learning, and I think that's a really key one for me. And I know it seems simple and small, and everyone talks about growth, but I've said it to Mark, I've said it to all the team, and I've said it to everyone I've managed. Really, I genuinely don't believe there's such a thing as steady state. I don't think that there is such a thing as standing still. I think we are growing or we are dying at any one point. And realistically, if we are not spending time day by day, week by week, quarter by quarter, whatever that is, like learning something new and developing and kind of growing ourselves, our skill sets, our understanding, our viewpoints, diversifying that, then we're moving backwards. And it's the reason we train so consistently, sometimes once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. And I've always tried to maintain that in every company that I've managed in, is because that feeling of growth, I think, is so key. Like, not just in terms of someone feeling like they're progressing in their careers and retaining good talent, although it's true of those two things, but because if we're not learning good habits, we'll be learning bad habits. And I genuinely believe that there is no one in the world who, is so bad at their job or whatever that is, or has opposite principles to me that I still can't learn anything from. So in every situation, I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to pick something that I can take away from a situation. I say the same thing with AEs. Every time they jump off a call, I will grill them after a demo. Like, I will grill them about, what do you think went right? What do you think could have gone better? Like, how would you rate that demo? And then what we do is we articulate something off the back of that as a plan that we're going to change in that next demo. And we do that after every single demo. And those tiny little incremental steps all add up. It's growth. Even if it's a 1% difference, that compounds over time in terms of results. So that for me is really key. And yeah, something I'll carry on doing next year and forever, hopefully.
Like it. A good strong one to take away there as a final point as well. Dig it. Well, guys, we'll wrap up there, because there's definitely a podcast in here to salvage somewhere, I guarantee
Wait.
At this point, this needs to get off my neck. What?
Wait, Chris, what on earth have you taken from me?
What have I taken from you?
Yeah, what have you learned?
Always be better.
All right, fair enough. Cop out, but all right. I like it.
There's no jump on there, mate. He's got you covered. He's got you absolutely nailed to the post. I love it. Awesome. We'll wrap up there, guys. thank you so much for the absolute chaos that's been this podcast. I can't wait to see the outclip. The outtakes are going to be the real cream of the crop on this one. For now, thank you very much. And for those who are watching to this late in the episode, we're back next year. We'll take a short break, get everything sorted out, make some upgrades, and then we're back with new guests in the new year. So until then, see you later. Have a good Christmas.
This will be my last time, no doubt.